Hi YouTube, Ben from Sonic Safari here. In this ongoing series, we've been creating drum sounds in Logic using the ES2 synthesizer, and now we're going to put it all together into a drum kit, which we're going to make out of the sampler ESX24 sampler. So let's get into it and make some drums. Okay, I'm here in Logic, and here's all of the drum sounds we've made so far. If you've been following along this entire series, you can hear that we made a kick sound, we made a snare sound, a hi-hat, this cowbell sound, a clap sound, and this tom sound. Cool, so what I've already done is I've gone ahead and I've drawn some notes in here so that they just play one after the other. Cool, and what we need to do next is convert these to audio. Now, anytime you're doing synthesis, you might find that every time you trigger a note, it sounds slightly different. So some of these I've actually drawn several different notes in here. For example, the hi-hat, you can see I've got several different notes, and the hi-hat, I want to have a closed hi-hat and an open hi-hat. So I've actually automated here the modulation wheel, which you can see here. And that way it's slowly opening up. So if we just play it from here, we can hear that hi-hat opening up. If you want to know how I set that up in the ES2, watch the hi-hat tutorial. All right, so let's just bounce these out. I'm going to use Logic's bounce and place method. So you can right click and say bounce and join and say bounce and place. I like to use the keyboard shortcut Control B. So I'm just going to, let's see if I can do them all in one go actually. I'll select them all and go Control B. And it looks like it might be one at a time. So I'll just go with the default settings. It's going to put it on a new track. And let's make sure that the effects are going to actually be burnt into the instrument. So I'll do that. Okay, it looks like it put them all on the one track here, which is okay. What I might do is call this drums bounced. All right, and let's just pop that down there on the bottom. In fact, we could just hide all these other ones for now because we're actually done with them for now. Let's just hide them and let's just have a listen to this. Okay, it sounds like it worked pretty well. If I open this up in the sample editor here, I'll actually go over to the file editor because I want to set some transients. So if we come here, turn on this transient editor bit here, which is this, we can see that that has now gone ahead and chopped these all up. Now it looks like there's slightly too many here at the end, so if I click the wee minus button here, we can maybe remove some of these transients, and let's just zoom in here a bit and see just how well it's done. Okay, let's go over to this one. Looks like they're pretty good actually. So we could move across here and see just how good that is. But yeah, generally I think that's pretty good. We can always tweak this in the sampler later on. So the nice thing is if we want to, now we've got this as one audio file, we can very easily make a drum kit up out of this by simply right clicking and saying convert to new sampler track, or Control E. So I'm actually going to go ahead and say Control E. I do this all the time. Really useful feature in Logic. So Control E. Now it's going to ask me, how do I want to do this? Do I want to do it based on separate regions? In this case, we've only got one region here. So I'm going to use those transient markers that we just popped in. And let's say we want to start at, I'll say start at C2. I'll just type in C2 maybe. Where are we? C2. There we go. All right, and I'll just click OK, and let's see what we get. Actually, I'll also check one-shot zone so that they play through the whole sample. There we go. All right, so now we've got a new track with all these drum sounds, and it's this ESX24 instrument. Notice it's just called it kick number 1, bounce in place, and what I'll do is just click on the edit button and let's have a look inside here. but we should now just be able to, we can play all these drum sounds straight here on our keyboard. Great. Okay, so I'm going to click edit to get inside here, and you can see what we've got is all these different samples mapped to different drum zones starting here at C2. All right, so there's our kick. Okay, so we're back here inside of our sampler instrument. What I might do is actually save this as. I'll just say save as. And I'm going to just call this ES2 drums. Here we go. And you'll be able to download this patch yourself later on along with the project file. So there we go. So these are all one shot and they're all actually in pitch. What I might do is actually, we want to move these around a bit. So I've got my kick drum there on C2, which is good. My snare drum here is actually placed on C sharp. I don't want that. I'm going to move that up to D1, but we've also got this hi-hat here. So let's see, I'll move that hi-hat around and then, great. So now I've got my snare here on D2. Now, anytime you move one of these around, notice that it's actually changing. If I move this up, it's changing the pitch. If I move this way up here to F, you can hear that's really pitched up. So what we need to do is tell it what the root note is. So notice that here, I need to set that key to D2 because that's the note it's on. So that at that note D2, that's playing at its normal pitch. Okay, great. Let's move on. Okay, so I've got this nice got a few different closed hi-hats here. I might get rid of some of these because some of them are very just the same based on those MIDI notes. So I'll just delete some of these. We can just select this zone here and remove that. So there we go, that's gone. This sounds like a very open hi-hat. What I might do is set this one. Actually, I'll remove this one too because we've got another open hi-hat there. So let's get rid of that. And that's a nice sounding closed hi-hat. Don't really need this one, so I'll delete this one too. Okay, so I might get rid of this guy here. And there's my open hi-hat. I want the open hi-hat to actually be on, let's move this one over here. So, and that's supposed to be on. So we're going to have a few different variations. So here on F sharp, I've got a very closed hi-hat. G sharp, a slightly more open hi-hat. And what I want to do here is on A sharp, at the moment we've got this cowbell. I'll move the cowbell down to G, and I want to move this open one up to A sharp. And we need to set the key to A sharp. So they're all playing the same pitch. There we go. And now there's my cowbell. I want the cowbell maybe up here on A. And let's tune that up. So we want that to be on. That sounds good. And then we've got might have done two pitches there. That's okay. Okay, there's our clap. So I'm going to move the clap down to, let's say, E. Okay, we don't need this. In fact, I'll get rid of this guy because I think this is a nicer sounding closed hi-hat. great. And we'll just, there we go. All right, so here's my clap. I want that on E. We need to change the key to okay, E2, so it's playing at the right pitch. Now let's look at our toms. So that's pretty much the same. We can get rid of that. So that's our low tom. I want to put the low tom here, say on F. And let's set that key to F2, and I'll move this high tom up to G. So let's set the, there we go. So now we've got kick, snare, clap, low tom, high tom, closed hi-hat, semi-open hi-hat, open hi-hat, and cowbell. Maybe it would be fun to have that cowbell going on a couple of notes. What I could actually do is copy and paste this. So if we copy this here, we can just say edit copy that zone, and we'll paste it again. And let's move this one up to okay, so this one here on C3, the key pitch is set to C3, so it's playing about normal pitch. Maybe I'll pitch this one here on B down a little bit. And again, we can do that either by changing the root key or by changing the fine tune pitch. In fact, I could just change the coarse pitch here to -5. So now we can just play a couple of variants, and while I'm at it, it could be fun to maybe have a reverse snare in there. So what I'll do is select my snare. Let's actually go copy. We'll copy that one, and let's paste it again. And I'm going to place this up here on D sharp. Let's hit the the key to D sharp, and I want to reverse this one. So at the moment it's set to 1 shot, meaning it's going to play the whole sample, which is what I want. And I also want to reverse this. Now, if you're not seeing a column that says reverse, you may need to come here under view and just check on reverse. So in my case, that's already showing. And so I'm going to come here and check on reverse. And it's not playing. That's interesting. Right. This might be a good time to go into the editor. So if we want to actually edit the sound, what we can do is come to in this zone here. And if I click the wee arrow, we can actually say open in sample editor, and we can see where this is. So I'll make this a bit wider. Okay, I can see there's a ton of silence there. So it's reversed. It's playing from the end here. We want to shorten that way down. So now we can go. Cool, that's a bit of fun. All right, great. Now what I want to do with these hi-hats is I don't want to be able to play an open and a closed hi-hat at the same time. So what we can do is set up what's called, often called a choke group. So you can either play only a closed hi-hat or only an open hi-hat. If you think about a real drum kit, it's just the one actual instrument, the hi-hat. So you can't play both. It's one or the other. So we can set this up. So I'll select these zones here. This one. So this one, and this one. So that's these three. I can shift click, I think. There we go. And what I want to do is make a new group. So if we come up here to group, we'll say new group. All right. And I could rename this group here. Hi-hat, H for hi-hat. And if we come here to groups, so now I've got my hi-hats here in this group, and everything else is in this other kick group. Okay, cool. And what I want to do is actually set the group to the number of voices to 1. So what that means is this should actually cut this off. So we should only be able to hear just the open hi-hat or just the closed hi-hat. That's the idea. So we'll come here and again, yeah, let's just check that out. Groups. Voices 1. That should be working. It's because they're set to one-shot mode, I believe. So what I might do is turn these all off one shot, at least these 3. All right, so that's how we can set it up so that we're just hearing our hi-hats, one hi-hat at a time. Let's save our instrument. I'm going to come here and just say save. And now we should actually have a drum kit. Okay, so I've whipped up a little beat here using our brand new drum kit that we just created. And it's a bit of a dubsteppy sort of a beat. Let's just have a listen. Cool. All right, so there we go. Might have an extra one there. I'll get rid of that. Okay, excellent. So if we want to have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to mixing this, what we could do is split these different drum sounds out into different outputs. So you notice that by default, when you create a software instrument in Logic, it's usually a stereo instrument, but all the Logic instruments actually have a multi-output option. So if I come here and switch this over from stereo to a multi-output sampler, it looks like nothing much happened. But if I open up the mixer window, I'll hit X to open up the mixer, and you can see here that here's my sampler instrument, and because it's a multi-output, it's got a wee plus sign. If I click the plus sign a couple of times to add a couple more channels here, you can see these auxiliaries that it's added, and these are basically auxiliary extra outputs. So what I need to do is map the different sounds to these different outputs. If I open up my instrument, so I'll click here on Edit, and if I select my hi-hat group, all of the hi-hats, let's say I want to come out a different output. You notice here's the output. I'll set these all out to outputs 3 and 4, say. So these are all set to outputs 3 and 4. So notice now that I've got all my hi-hats coming out just this output. I'll just rename that hi-hats. And if I come back here and select the kick, I've actually already set this to output 5 and 6. So now I've got just the kick coming out here on auxiliary 2. So I'll name that kick. And my snare drum and this cowbell is coming out here, out this main output. So I'll just name this snare, something like that. Okay, great. And I'll close that up. So now we've got all of our different instruments coming out different outputs. If I wanted to actually process these separately, what I could do is now add some different effects. So I could add some EQ, for example, just to the snare. I'll just solo the snare. Maybe we could add a little bit more there at 200. Maybe add a bit more mids. Cool. And maybe we want to put that through reverb. I could add a send here, say bus 1. And here on bus 1, I could add, say, a space designer. And I was quite liking this preset here under medium spaces, this percussion room. If we're adding something like a reverb to a send, you always want to make sure that there's no dry. So we'll turn the dry down if it's not already. And just leave us with a wet. I can increase the wet if I want to. And now we can send our snare to that reverb. Here we go. I can rename that if I want. Cool. And that could be a bit much, but we'll leave it there for now. Let's have a look at the hi-hats. We can EQ these. I'll take any bass out just in case. And maybe we want to just boost the highs a bit. Add a bit of sizzle. Okay, great. Maybe we want to put that through a little bit of that reverb. Not too much though. Actually, let's put this through a delay. I'll add another bus here and turn that up. Let's come here to bus number 2. I'm going to choose a stereo delay. And maybe I'll change this from a quarter note to an 8th dotted note. So now I've got this interesting rhythm going on. Cut out the lows there in the delay and maybe a bit of the highs. We don't need quite as much feedback. It's supposed to be just a little extra rhythm there. Okay, and I'll just make that a bit more subtle. We could maybe even have these panning. So what I'll do is I'll add another effect. I'll come here to modulation and tremolo. Okay, I'll just bring the depth down a bit. Add a bit of stereo motion in the hi-hats. Let's look at the kick. Okay, I might take out any very low subs, but I might punch up at about 100 Hertz. Add a little bit more, maybe a little bit of the click up here at about 2K. There we go. Cool. I don't think we need this extra one, so what I'll do is just click the wee minus here to get rid of... Oops, let's undo that. Cool, this is delay. Now we could actually add these to a track. So if I come to say this hi-hat, at the moment it's just an auxiliary channel here. I could right click on this and say create track. So now here I've got a track. Do the same thing with the kick, create track. So now we've actually got tracks. If we wanted to find these in our arrangement, you could even, you know, copy the MIDI note. So you've got just the hi-hat on this track, just the kick on that track, etc. But I won't bother doing that. What we could do though is if we want to apply a bit of processing to the whole thing, I could select all 3 of these and right click and say create track stack. So a track stack in Logic is like a group in, say, Ableton, where we can group these 3 together. I'm going to choose a summing stack. And now they're all inside this group here, called, or the stack called sum 5. I'll just call this drum stack. There we go. And now if we want to add some overall processing to the whole thing, I can add effects to the stack. So maybe I want to add a compressor here. And I might choose this preset under drums, live drums. Let's try this out. Maybe I'll turn auto gain to off and I'll just turn the output makeup gain a bit down. There we go, that adds a bit more punch. So you get the idea. Now we've got separate control over the individual drums, and we can also, if we want to, you know, control them all together. Okay, so just for fun, I've already, if I unhide it, I've already added this wobble bass. All right, and what I might do is just jam out. So this is just an alchemy patch. If I open up alchemy, so here we've got this, it's just a preset, and I'll just play out with this bass in our drums that we created. A lot of fun. Okay, see you next time.